Another quality chapter coming in, and I know a lot of people are focusing on the obvious stuff that was going on for Noelle, because it was primarily a Noelle chapter. And I did think it was really funny, just off of the previous chapter, that a lot of the people that were upset that Asta showing up was more of like, oh, Asta might steal the show and stuff. It's like, you gotta at least put the concept of something that could happen on the back burner of like, if this happens, I won't like it. Like if Megicula dies before like fully manifesting, I would be upset by it. If she gets sent back to the underworld, that's one thing. I'd be like, okay, whatever. That's just temporary. This is just this is just kind of like a first showing of her. And if she just gets sent back, then it's like, oh, okay, well then that means that whenever we get to her floor, we'll get her out in full power. Something like that, where it's I mean, it could happen. She could die here. I don't want her to, especially because like she's been really cool so far. But Asta like immediately is just like, well, I can't use Devil Union. Sorry, I can't do anything by it. And just like they just kind of get him out of there, and he's leaves the scene. Like he goes to a different area entirely. I had to adjust my gain on my mic because I realized it was way down, so it got completely fumbled like partway into the sentence. But anyway, everything right now around like this whole fight was pretty sick because I think this really did a lot for practically everybody involved in this. Like the only fans I would say that didn't really kind of have like a good time in this chapter that are going to be kind of like center stage for these events would be Gaja fans for obvious reasons. And then, like Tabata just kind of gives him a very basic backstory, and again, for one, I'm perfectly fine with his backstory because it's understandable. There's a difference between something that's kind of like plain but is just kind of like boring or doesn't make sense versus something that's just like, oh yeah, that makes complete sense. It's kind of like when I say like if the Witch Queen showed up, like we wouldn't really need much of an explanation outside of like, yeah, I mean if if these guys complete this ritual, then I'm screwed too. So it's like we don't need some long multi-step piece to understand of why she's gonna do it. It's just kind of basic logic of like, oh yeah, she's gonna want to keep cover her own ass and keep her own people safe. It's kind of like that with Gaja, not obviously in the same way, but it's like he's a soldier of the Heart Kingdom, and Lolo is his queen, and also like knowing her personality thing, and she's too nice to really do anything offensive, and she only does support spells pretty much. It would kind of like drive that home, because not only is that his queen, but it's his queen that because she's so kind that she really does need complete protection in any like battle scenario, because outside of support spells, she can't really defend herself. But Libe in this chapter, I thought Libe had like a good scene, even though his was very minimal. Him saying how like, oh, him being analytical enough and attentive enough to be like, there's only one gate open, but there's another Supreme Devil here. Like he's just trying to figure out what the problem is, and knowing he's like telling Austin, informing him to like direct that on. Hey, we don't have Devil Union right now. We will not be able to contend with her. And then I thought that was good because it showed Libe being smart. And what's funny is like I know some people don't like the chibi Libe kind of like design, but it's funny that in this form he really is. It's like he's sitting on Asta's shoulder, like legitimately giving him advice. Because like Asta has some good battle prowess, intellect, but like obviously Asta isn't the smartest guy, and having Libe directly, like literally like a devil on his shoulder, but in a good way, being like, hey, this is serious. We should probably be aware of the realism of this scenario. And Vonica, like she's just, Vonica fans, I mean, I guess like they don't have to deal with her being dead. I mean, that's really like the only thing they got from her this chapter. But Megicula, again, I really like Megicula so far. I think she's been very cool. She's been interesting. Her magic is fun. Like the twins, like I liked their designs, but like their personalities were very stale, and they had just very regular magic. And Fire and Ice can be really cool. I mean, like look at Black Clover. You can look at people like Marileona and Figo and stuff. I mean, literally like Fire and Ice. I can look at other series. I mean, I talk about Fairy Tail all the time. Natsu and Gray. Like Fire and Ice can be cool. The twins didn't really do anything neat with like their Fire and Ice. Even when they made when Lilith made the big ice ball, it was literally just a big ice ball. Like, if it was, like, a big ice ball that was, like, shooting out smaller ice balls, kind of like, just think of, just one of those attacks where it's like, shoot a big blast in the air, and it just completely, it just starts kind of, like, shoot, like, little run-off bits of it in all these different directions, and just different blasts everywhere. Something like that, but it's just like, was this going to be a big ice ball that fell down? Cool, had some fire on it. It wasn't anything special. Whereas Megekyo, like, all her current, like, spells and stuff been really cool. And especially the one she used in this chapter where she just made all those minions. She took all the dead Dark Disciples and put curses on them, and then used the magic from the souls of Vonica and Aesir Silva that she had, and pretty much turned them into these sick blood and steel, like, mini demons. I actually would be really curious as, like, those devils, where they would rank. I would assume mid-rank, just kind of like, I feel like that's nothing crazy for her that would be kind of too much for Noelle, but it would also be still pretty formidable, considering, like, just dropping a bunch of, like, knights at that level with 2 different magic attributes would still be really dangerous. And especially like, with, like, the mid-devils, they should still be capable of doing things, but, like, these ones are just kind of, like, controlled and are just going out to attack, so they're not going to be like the ones we saw get mauled by Luck. And obviously, like, Luck was using ultimate magic and stuff, and Luck was very fast. But it's like, I would assume they would have done better if they weren't just, like, screwing around and they just got messed up. Like if those mid-devils were at least taking those guys seriously, I would assume they would have had a slightly better fight. Either way, Megicula in the chapter, when she's just like, oh, well, I'm just gonna nuke the area, blow up Vonica and Lolo, and pretty much take these guys out, fully manifest, and call it good. Because she pays attention to Asta, and that's one of the things I really liked about this chapter. It's probably my favorite part about it, when she's like, oh no, you must be the anti-magic guy that Vonica were talking about, because she knows that, like, oh, he's able to do stuff in the Decaying World, he messed with one of my magic curses. But then she's like, he's very intriguing, but he could bring about, like, some unforeseeable situation. And I thought that was really good, because that's how Asta essentially is. That's how anti-magic really is in the series. It's a wild card in pretty much every scenario it's in. It's not an automatic win. It's really just this crazy, piece on the board that if they play it directly in a good way and they maneuver it in the best way possible, then they can really shift the tides of battle. And as well, like, Charlotte had a really good part in this chapter. Like, she held back the curse explosions, because Asta said that he was able to neutralize the exploding curse when he came in, but, like, all the other curses that are tied to Lolo he couldn't really deal with, especially within that period of time. I would imagine it'd be like he's got to do them one by one or something like that, just because, like, the curses are obviously something from a very high level. He's in base form, and the complexity of all these different curses probably play a factor as well. But Charlotte's just, like, keeping them down, like, messing with those curses. And I did say, if Rill did something commendable, I would give him credit for it. Granted, I do not think this makes up for Rill's status in the time skip. If he can have, like, I'd say, like, 2 more good moments like this, and it doesn't have to be in the fight, it just has to be in the arc. If after this battle he recovers and he does something else to really kind of be beneficial, then that'll be +1. If he can get back, he can get 2 more good ones, I'll give him credit. Because, like, the thing is, I don't hate Rill. It's just, like, he's been so down bad this entire arc of pretty much just getting in the way and being like a body on, just a body on the battlefield. It's just like, damn, what's been going on? But he did good in this chapter, and he, like, explains how Twilight Valhalla, because it was something he hadn't done before, it was completely different from any of his other painting spells, because this one obviously has a special effect that people within the range will temporarily pretty much become invincible and get a magic buff. I would assume that, like, the idea of, like, invincible, like, you can probably figure out a way to overwhelm it or cancel it out, like something like anti-magic, obviously, or maybe something like Marileona who can burn magic, or anything along those lines where it's like, oh no, I can nullify the effect. But outside of that, I do think that's probably just one of those spells where it's like, you have to stop it before it goes off. If it goes off, then it goes off. Like, you just gotta deal with that at that point. It's like, if it was something that you couldn't neutralize after the fact, I think that would be definitely the factor in it. It's just like, you have all the time to deal with them before, like, the activation happens. Because it was only a couple chapters ago that he did this. Was it 299 or 298 that he put it up? So it had to probably be like a couple minutes within their world. And even says like after this, like for a few minutes, they're going to be invincible. And after that point, the damage is going to return to them. It's like a slightly better but delayed version of Nero's ability to seal damage. Like hers is 1v, like on a single person. It's direct, it's instant, whereas like this is an AoE. It also gives a magic boost, but it does have a activation timer. So again, Rill had a good part in this chapter, and I'll give him credit for it. I won't act like just because like I've been clowning on Rill that, you know, if he does something that he should get praise for, then I'm just gonna ignore him. Like, no, he did something good. This is good for him. And then, like I said, the souls of like those dudes and like turning into these blood steel knights were so cool. The moment with Noelle revealing that she loves Asta, that was really good. That was a good character time. I know a lot of people are talking about Noelle because Noelle has had a lot of the focus this fight. She's been the main person involved in this. And though I said that this was a very Noelle, the biggest aspects of this chapter definitely go to Noelle. But I still think Magicula was the best part of the chapter. Her just dialogue, her whole bit when she's talking about how like individually like these humans wouldn't really matter at all in front of her, but it's their grouping together and their teamwork and the way that their abilities and kind of all culminate together that really make them formidable and able to fight back against her. And I thought that was pretty good because it really does, like, you know, that is the reality of the things. Like, the devils don't seem to work together. They don't have any form of camaraderie or just general kinship that would make them even contemplate doing something like this. Like, even Lilith and Nama, like, when Nama got cut in half, Lilith seemed very amused by it. So it's like, I don't think that they actually gave any form of sibling care toward each other. It's more of just, like, they associate with each other because they like to do their stuff together, do all their crazy, maniacal, devil, evil stuff. But the chapter itself was good. What's funny is, like, for a chapter that was only 15 pages, it felt longer. And that's one of the things I thought was really cool about this. Like, some of the other Shonen Jump stuff, like, that obviously came out this week was, you know, usually around that 19-page chapter. This was only 15, but I think that this chapter felt longer than a lot of the other ones. And I think one of the things, and we also had, like, that double spread. Like, we had that big spread page, and that took up, obviously, 2 pages of the 15, and there's practically no dialogue on the whole thing. And there's the whole page where she's got, like, the blood steel devils coming up, and that's also a page with pretty much no dialogue. And at the same time, it's just, like, a combination of the visual stuff, the fact that all these characters all had some good moments. You can really kind of, like, see individually for each of them how it's going to go. Like, there was just a lot of good stuff this chapter. And it's funny because, like, it felt longer, but I don't have nearly as much to say as I usually do just because of it being, like, a bit shorter. But it was good. It was good stuff. It's probably one of my favorite chapters I've read in a while for Black Clover. But anyway, other than that, though, comment below. Thumbs up the video, befriend the like button, subscribe button, check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everybody's already subscribed. And I thank you all for listening. Bye.